In 1908, at a Republican convention, President Roosevelt publicly announced his presidential support for his Secretary of War, William Howard Taft. Taft won by a wide margin in the Electoral College. Roosevelt assumed Taft held the same intentions of reform as he did, but it was soon proved otherwise. During his presidency, Taft approved of many new laws benefiting the people and also extending presidential powers. Congress passed the Mann-Elkins Act in 1910, stretching the regulatory powers of the Interstate Commerce Commission to the telephone and telegraph companies. He also promoted environmental conservation, adding more land to the National Forest Reserves. With Taft's urging, Congress also passed safety laws for miners while creating an 8-hour workday. In 1913, the 16th Amendment was ratified, allowing Congress to levy taxes based on an individual's income. Despite Taft's many reforms, he lost the support of progressive Republicans beginning in April of 1909. Taft and the progressives favored tariff reductions on imports, but some conservatives wanted the opposite for protection of American industries. The House sent the Senate a low tariff bill, but Senator Nelson changed it to a high tariff bill. Lacking the skill to oppose the conservatives, Taft did not veto the bill, and even called it the best tariff bill that the Republican Party ever passed. Progressives were furious, leading to the beginning of the split between them and President Taft. The gap extended even further when Taft revealed his weakness on conservation in the Billinger pension affair. His Secretary of Interior, Richard Billinger, sold a vast area of land belonging to Roosevelt's conservation program. When Gifford Pinchot, head of the U.S. Forest Service, continued to criticize him, Taft fired him. Not only did Taft create a deeper break with progressives, but also with Theodore Roosevelt. In the 1910 congressional elections, Roosevelt introduced New Nationalism, a series of strict laws protecting workers, ensuring public health, and the regulation of business. Reformers praised New Nationalism, hoping it would restore progressive ways. However, the results ended in the Democrats' favor. The Republicans lost control of the House of Representatives for the first time in 16 years, leaving both Roosevelt and Taft greatly disappointed. During the time of the election, the gulf grew even wider between Taft and the progressives. In 1910, progressive Republicans attacked the Speaker of the House, Joseph Cannon, a conservative Republican. He ruled the House in a strict and commanding manner, controlling the order and even preventing debate over bills he opposed. The progressives came out victorious, reducing the power of the Speaker of the House and granting more abilities to its members. However, Taft's refusal to take the progressive side in the Cannon debate pushed them to their breaking point. Roosevelt decided to run against Taft for presidency, but Taft's allies still held control of the party machinery and refused to seat Roosevelt's delegates at a Republican convention. Taft won the nomination, and Roosevelt supporters left to create a new branch called the Progressive Party, with Roosevelt as their presidential leader. The division of the Republican Party practically guaranteed a Democratic victory for the soon-to-be candidate Woodrow Wilson.
During Wilson's presidential campaign in 1912, he emphasized individualism and states' rights in his New Freedom campaign, while his opponent, Roosevelt, exemplified the New Nationalism. New Freedom focused on tariff reform, banking and monetary reform, and the antitrust legislation, three of which he called the Triple Wall of Privilege. In the tariff reform, Wilson wanted to expand economic opportunities to the lower society and eliminate the special privileges of the wealthy. He argued that the high tariffs created monopolies and hurt consumers, and his lower tariffs were popular in the South and West. As for bank reform, he wanted to create a new banking system because since the Civil War, Democrats and agrarians wanted a more flexible money supply and system of banking that will allow adjustments in the amount of money and credit available in times of economic expansion or crisis. The antitrust legislation called for the prohibition of unfair business practices. Woodrow Wilson said, "What is our cause? The people's cause." That is easy to say, but what does it mean? The common as against any particular interest whatever? Yes, but that, too, needs translation into acts and policies. We represent the desire to set up an unentangled government, a government that cannot be used for private purposes either in the field of business or in the field of politics. Roosevelt believed the federal government should act as a trustee for the American people, controlling and supervising the economy in the public interest. 4 years later, Wilson ran for re-election in 1916. During the 1916 campaign against Republican Charles Hughes, Wilson ran a platform of preparedness for war, child labor laws, a World Association of Nations to maintain peace after war in Europe ended, women's suffrage, prison reform, Federal Reserve legislation, and peace. However, he knew that a world war was soon approaching.
After winning the 1910 election, Wilson believed that a government which was too strong gave limited freedom to all citizens and corporations. He wished to remove barriers so it would relieve the competition for America. He also wanted to limit the power of monopolies in order for small businesses not to be threatened by huge corporations. During his presidency, he promoted 3 goals that would transform America: lowering tariffs, banking reforms, and business regulations. In 1912, the New Freedom Campaign was established. The campaign promoted the help for small businesses. This meant that all heavy businesses companies were free, which gave the small businesses more opportunities to excel in their jobs. In 1913, Wilson established the Underwood Tariff Act. This new law reduced federal income tax rates after the passing of the 16th Amendment to the lowest levels in 50 years. This also made graduated income, which was based on the financial situations of citizens. In 1913, at the time, banks regularly failed at distributing and handling money in its possession. There was a high demand for reform. This influenced the Federal Reserve Act. This established a 3-tier system. Top of the tier was the Federal Reserve Board, which consisted of a president that managed the bank. The second tier was 12 federal banks, which had mixed and private controls. The third tier were private banks, which were given the ability to borrow bank interest from the Federal Reserve banks, according to the rules that the board outlined. In 1914, the Clayton Antitrust Act was established. This extended the 1890 Sherman Antitrust Act. This defined rules on what corporations could and could not do. It also defined a rule that a corporation could not drive other competitors out of business. Also, many companies could not buy competitors' stocks. Finally, all acts of committing these crimes were only legal if corporations were caught in the act. The Clayton Antitrust Act influenced the Federal Trade Commissions, also known as the FTC. This gave the government the ability to investigate corporations for mislabeled products and false claims. The biggest events that occurred during Woodrow Wilson's second term of his presidency was the passing of the 19th Amendment. This granted full voting rights to women. That was ratified in August 26, 1920. Woodrow Wilson was also successful in gaining the support of farmers, reformers, and the common people with his Underwood Tariff Act, the Federal Reserve Act, and his Clayton Antitrust Act. In March 3, 1921, Woodrow Wilson not only left the White House but left a lasting impact and legacy in the United States. One historian, John Morton Blum, said, "What Wilson was most capable of president was to involve himself in great affairs and to try to find ways which work out the problems created by those great affairs." Another historian, J. Winter, quoted, "Wilson's ideas were victorious even in his policies. He left his stamp upon the way in which American foreign policies have been formulated throughout the 20th century, and the paradox is that man whose vision was repudiated by his political leadership of his time managed to achieve a way of framing the language of American foreign policy. throughout the 80 years since his death.